Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the September 29th Energy Advisory Committee meeting. Anybody other than LakeCAM recording the meeting? Look out in the audience. I don't see anybody. So what we're going to do, I guess we do the Pledge of Allegiance first. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I guess we haven't met for a while, so we'll start out. Member introductions. My name's Nathan Darling. I've been on the Energy Advisory Committee since 2012. I'm the Building Commissioner, Zoning Enforcement Officer in Lakeville.
Joseph Chamberlain, also on this commission for a while, 50 years or so on Conservation Commission, and I'm on the Master Plan Implementation Committee also.
Hi, I'm John Gregory. First time on any town committee. I said earlier, I often sit in the audience out there, so it's exciting to be the first time at the big table tonight.
Phil Oliver, just newly appointed to the committee. I used to retire from running the hospital facilities over at South Coast Health. So I'm pretty excited to be on this, kind of ties to that kind of stuff.
I'm Emily Surratt. I'm not a member of the committee. I'm just here acting as staff support. I'm the management analyst for the town of Lakeville.
I'm Don Foster, and new to this committee, but I think a graduate of the last committee, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know how long that went, but it sort of died a quiet death. And has come back. I do have a background on the Open Space Committee and the Zoning Board and the Old Colony School Committee and a bunch of other things.
All right, good. That's it. And other members not present this evening is Lorraine Carboni. And that's it. So we do have a vacant position for Open Space Committee as well. If anybody on the Open Space Committee's looking to do that. So
Excuse me, Nate?
Yeah.
Is the town administrator also a member?
Town administrator, to the best of my knowledge, is not a member.
I thought they were in the charge.
7.
No.
Give me a second, I got the charge here. So membership is made of, consists of 5 members to be appointed by the select board. Members shall include Director of Inspection Services, select board member, Conservation Commission, Open Space, 1 at large, in as many as 2 ex officio. So we do have a full complement. So first order of business, I guess, is organizing the committee.
Nate, I'd like to nominate you as the chair.
No, I really appreciate that, but I'm trying to get more off my plate. Joe, any interest at all?
I'm on 3 different ones already, so.
And I know Don's.
I'm still working full time, so.
I think it's probably time to get some new blood in here. Phil, you interested? I'd be willing to make a nomination for Phil Oliveira as chair.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
Second? Anyone?
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Phil, it's up to you if you want me to finish this one out and
Please.
jump in. Yeah, no problem at all. I love being in this role. Any nominations for vice chair? John, you had any interest at all?
What's the position do?
Fill in, run the meeting if in the absence of Phil. If it's not you, we're going right to Lorraine because absence, she can't say no.
Never miss a meeting.
Sure, I could be vice chair.
Make a motion, John Gregory, for vice chair.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations. You're going to the big table and right up to the top right in no time at all. All right, so we got a set of minutes from November 19th, 2020. We go to Don and Joe on this one.
That was before COVID. I think, or the onset of COVID. It goes
Been
way
just
back.
in COVID started in April, March, April.
Yeah, so, in the absence of any understanding of what we actually talked about 5 years ago, I move to approve.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'd have to abstain because I wasn't.
Yep,
here.
yep.
Anyone opposed? No. All right. Yes, we're all set. So, Green Communities update. So I'll give a quick update on this, and I mean, might touch on the history a little bit as well, just because we haven't met in a while. So back in 2012, we started the initiative to become a green community. We became a green community in late 2012, started our grant processes in 2013. Over the years, we received 5 different grants from the state green energies group. 2013 was $145,311. 2015 was $140,822, with another $8,000 of grant money from Middleborough Gas and Electric that year. 2017 was $247,500, with another $8,000 from MG&E. 2019 was $223,390, again with a match of $8,000 with Middleborough Gas and Electric. And most recently, 2023, $110,855. The 2023 grant was for weatherization, insulation, Wi-Fi thermostats at the Loon Pond Lodge. And then we were doing heat pumps to replace propane heating units at the animal shelter. All of these came with $10,000 worth of grant administration, which allows in-kind payment for town staff or others to participate in tracking grant projects and doing the annual reporting, quarterly reporting that's required under the grant contract. So right now, we've gone out to bid on the 2023 projects. It's kind of been a little bit of a delay, changeover in staff. We did get a successful bid of $50,699, which was way less than what we anticipated. We're currently looking at repurposing some of the excess funds. The problem is the state has got very, very strict on repurposing. So it's going to be a project that we can tie to the projects that were approved. So there might be a possibility to get more insulation at Loon Pond Lodge or something like that. The other one is additional duct work or decommissioning what we have at the animal shelter. It was very difficult to get the furnaces out of the attic, so we were going to decommission in place. This might be an opportunity to get a change order and get those actually out of there, which is a better option. We just figured it was going to be too involved and there wouldn't be the return on investment.
What's the downside of leaving them there, other than scrap value?
There is, so we've run into this over the years when we decommission in place, is especially the electrical part. You go in there, you don't know what's live. I mean, they tag it, but some tags fall off, or you lose track of what's actually working, what's not. Ideally, you'd get it out of there. It's just that we might have to cut open the gable end of the building in order to get it out. If we have the excess money in the grant, so we got about $10,000 in administration, which would give us $100,000 worth of projects, and we're only spending half of that.
These are propane furnaces?
Yeah, propane furnaces. So we might be able to get them out. I've got to see what the cost would be. And then we have to petition the state for the repurposing of funds. The nice part is with the money we put in the grant, it was a 10 to 12 year return on investment. So, if we spend the money, it's still the same return on investment. So the state will look on that fondly. If
Be curious to see and we had some email, I think, the animal control building, as I looked at the Prism Energy audit, it's like a level 2 ASHRAE audit, which doesn't do, it wasn't quantitative. So, since we've had a lot of correspondence on HERS ratings, I'm excited about the Ectrope software, how that's very, very detailed and quantitative. So, if there be a way to, maybe as a learning example for me or for this committee, get a review, ideally at no charge, of Prism's heat calculation for that building, as it is now, and why they picked the size heat pumps they did, and see if building improvements of either weather stripping and extra insulation might reduce the required load, and therefore maybe let us have the successful bidder accept a change order to reduce the size of the heat pumps, and also show the energy cost to run those pumps over the life of the building.
So you'd see an annual reoccurring savings, and John, I know exactly what you're talking about, and kind of making my wheels spin a little bit as far as it's possible that we could put in a request for additional energy survey work. The reduction of the units themselves, the sizing of the units, really can't happen right now unless it's with the energy improvements, because you can't size for what you are able to do in the future. You got to size for how the building currently is. But we can ask that question. So we could put in, there's plenty there. We could get pricing on a more in-depth audit and see if the state would react positively to that. So that's a start.
Well, before spending money on a more in-depth audit, I'd be just curious to see, because what the engineering review of the audit included, and look at the energy calculations that we've already paid for, right?
So to have somebody review the
size of the pumps.
Yeah, and then based on what we see there, decide if an additional, more extensive audit would be worthwhile. You know,
we can certainly look into it. It becomes somewhat problematic because the contract's been awarded.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we could ask for a change order if we did it quickly, because the state's not going to turn around and repurposing super quickly. And whether or not they can repurpose funds, get signed, either a peer review. So you're kind of suggesting a peer review of what Prism did to make sure the current size is okay, not a reduction in size based on a future project, right?
well, more the latter. Well, just to
The
see.
latter won't be able to happen because we can't size based on what we might do.
Well, then it'd be a learning experience where we say, okay, this is what, because the thought would be, ultimately, we want to make sure buildings are all operating as efficiently as possible with the smallest possible equipment, and therefore the lowest electric bill. With an eye
Or
toward.
fuel bill, whatever.
Well, we're
Yes.
going from propane to electric with
Electric,
heat pumps,
right,
so we'll be
yeah.
talking about electricity. And in my mind, the great advantage of heat pumps is now you've got the possibility of putting photovoltaics on the panel, now using solar electricity instead of electricity from the grid, and achieving on that building essentially net zero, where you have the energy produced matches exactly the energy need.
If you did the weather stripping,
Yeah.
you made the building more efficient without resizing the pumps, you could probably work within
Oh,
that
yeah.
constraint. But to go
Yeah,
back
so-
and resize the pump would probably
Because
not be doable right now.
so we got insulation weather stripping on the lodge,
Yeah.
so I didn't see any on the animal control building. And so it's just a question in my mind, and to me it seemed logical to evaluate the audit again and see what they left out. And
We can certainly take a look at it. The problem that we've seen over the years, and we were fortunate for a number of those grant cycles, that the select board, we had excess money, so the select board would put money into a pot and actually pay down the return on investment. What I mean by that, we might have, like in some years, we'd have 6 or 8 projects, and they might reflect 14, 15, 18-year return on investment. You put $10,000 towards the project and you drive it down to a 10-year return on investment. In all of the grant cycles during that time were all competitive grants. So anybody that put in, they were looking in aggregate what the return on investment was for the project. And they would award maybe 5 out of 8 projects to a town. Not always all of them. So they would look at the competitiveness of the grant application And so when you look at things like windows, and we're gonna touch upon that a little bit later in the agenda, we did look at windows like for Assawamsett Elementary School when we were doing the project. There's like a 30-year return on investment, 40-year return on investment. A lot of those things, and that's if you're lucky. So weatherization and air sealing is great. It's 5 to 8 years on average. Adding insulation, sometimes less so. Heating systems even now are becoming more and more difficult unless you do have a building like the animal shelter that's not well insulated. So the return on investment is better on the heating system. Whereas if it was insulated better, you wouldn't have the return on investment on the heating system. And I know a lot of it doesn't make sense. I've asked the state before to normalize a BTU because, it always bothered me if we were gonna follow the spirit of green communities and you take a community like Acushnet, for example, that uses Eversource, and they're 24, 26 cents a kilowatt and we're 12. The return on investment in Lakeville is double what it would be in Acushnet for the same exact project. So, I wanted to see them normalize a BTU. So this is what a saving of a BTU is.
Energy consumption.
Exactly, dollars and cents. But understandably, the state does look back at the dollars and cents. And if we go back in history to when we became a green community, that was one of the, and this, I don't agree with this either, but there was one of the qualifying factors that you couldn't be solely a muni served community. You had to have investor-owned utilities because they paid off, your ratepayers pay in to investor-owned utilities for these green community projects. So they thought it was unfair if a fully municipal utility that wasn't taxing their ratepayers were getting all of these incentives. And, we talked about Rick Velez earlier and what a fabulous member of the board because he understood
all
the
that,
energy side, but he also understood how all of these monies magically appear to go towards, projects, grant projects from the state, and it's all paid through the ratepayers for investor-owned utilities.
What's just a different subject? What's the cycle on this grant? So when does it usually start? When does it usually get awarded? The grants that we got over the last these five grants.
Yeah, so typically they're available every year. They've gone to what I understand is twice a year. They're taking them in kind of to make it so it's a little easier for the state to evaluate them. Okay. Where it became problematic for us right out of the gate was a lot of the communities that are in investor-owned utilities. Right. They do all the audits. So they have vendors that'll just go out and do the audits at no cost. They'll provide that information. Some of them even go so far as not having to go through the procurement process like we have to. So they have vendors that are already vetted that they automatically can just hire to do these projects. And those communities were successful in the beginning, like the first 4 or 5 years of their inclusion into the Green Communities group. They would just do, every year they'd do a project. Right. We have to solicit and through procurement, people to do these audits. So it's like a precursory action where we're putting in for grants, owner assistant technical grants to get funding from the state, usually in the amount of $12,500, specifically to do ASHRAE level 2 thermal audits. And to John's point, there's far better audits out there. It's just that we've been able to write grants to get to level 2. Right. And the state has been accepting of these level 2 audits to qualify us for the grant projects, the larger competitive grant projects.
Do they have a window where they open up for applications and then close? Do you know what the window is?
I don't know the current one we're in, probably spring now. Or do you think we're still in the fall?
Maybe. I'm not sure off the top of my head. I know it's spring and fall, but I don't know when it
is.
opens
I think it was probably March, April would be the next one because we got to do this project, close it out, and then we'd probably be looking March, April possibly.
I get a newsletter every month from DOER for Green Communities News, and it always lists out in that all the upcoming grant deadlines and programs they're offering. But I guess in terms of level 2 ASHRAE, I'm happy to write Lisa Sullivan a specific email questioning in this particular animal control project what would be the feasibility of the state funding. And I'll lay out on a table, I found a table online showing the different levels of ASHRAE audits. The level 3 includes computer simulations and detailed analysis of the existing insulation that's in the building, as opposed to, oh, yeah, we've got that there and this over here, all qualitative, not quantitative, measuring and doing analysis of what's in the building. And with the simulation, I'll ask her, well, maybe Prism would answer this question. Well, with the simulation, in my mind, they say, well, if you add another couple inches in the attic, you'll get this return. Like when you do a what if on a HERS rating with the Ectrope software, and you can see the index come down and the savings go up. Now I'll ask that question as soon as we get home tonight or tomorrow morning of Lisa to
This
see.
contract's already been awarded, right?
Pardon me?
This contract has already been
Well,
awarded.
yeah, to buy the heat
We must
pumps,
have
but now
a time frame to have to spend it. Do you have a time frame to spend the?
Yeah, so really, we had put in for an extension on it that gives us till next September.
Yeah, so.
I think it's September 30th of 2026.
I believe so.
Yeah, and I mean, so I guess theoretically, we could hit the pause button. I kind of hate to because we're ready to go and we're coming on into a heating season.
Yeah.
So if we get those installed, so just another thing to remember is when we're looking at these grant funds, a lot of times we're concentrating on things that have to be done anyway.
Yeah.
So we've been currently limping along the animal shelter because we didn't want to change them using town resources or direct town resources. So we used it as an opportunity to make a play on the Green Communities project, knowing that we had to change them anyway. I would hate to delay this and not get those in and then have a critical
I'm not suggesting
breakdown.
a delay. I'm just suggesting proceed with the existing purchase order and installation of the new heat pumps. Remove the furnaces if practical and within the constraint, but find out what it would cost to take another look at it to see if there are any lessons learned and how that this project is going.
I'm sorry, John, I misunderstood. I thought you meant the current project and resizing the heat pumps.
Well, no, I'm not
Yeah,
saying.
so as long as we can just keep going the way we're
Yeah.
currently designed, which is appropriate. And I think that to your point, if we can go in there and maybe make a play with repurposing, like we mentioned,
Yeah.
and that probably should come. So maybe if you want to articulate that in some form of writing and send it to Andrew and myself just to see what we see.
Okay.
We might get it back in front of the committee here to
Sure.
send it out. We don't have to have the money spent now until September 30th of 2026. So this project can go forward. We got time to, organize our thoughts and put in a request for repurposing. And, they might look at that as a better understanding because the state funds the level 2 audit. So what might come out of this is an opportunity to say, well, the level 2 could have been better. Maybe you ought to consider the owner's assistant technical grant to become a level 3.
Right.
This is an opportunity to see if we did it right, or maybe could have done it better.
Right, and then if we can go forward with the level 3, then we can compare and contrast to the level 2 to show the value of doing that up front instead of a 2 for future projects, but not to hold this one up.
Yeah, I like that idea. For those purposes, because
Yeah.
I got to tell you, so I think that you remember early on, Joe and Don, we always talked about the low-hanging fruit, and we went after the low-hanging fruit,
always.
right? And because we went after the low-hanging fruit, by 2017, we hit a 20% overall reduction in municipal buildings. And then we saw the return on investment get more and more difficult because we hit the low-hanging fruit, drove down the 20%, and now there wasn't much left.
No, I suppose,
If you looked at this as more of a long-term business plan, you probably would have gone for the stuff that was now a 15-year return on investment. Hit that up front, it would have been a 10-year return on investment in some of the weatherization and insulation controls.
Yeah, you did it the right way, though.
Yeah, no, yeah, we hit 20%. But now I've got to tell you, unless there's other opportunities, whether it's John's brought up like the decarbonization roadmap. Some of these other things, they become very, very strict from a building code perspective. But there is a possibility to get other grant funds, through other stuff. So they stopped doing all lighting, except for in schools. So when you looked at some of the projects that we've done here, and we relamped everything in the Assawamsett Elementary School, right out of the gate, so that was done. Then we relamped everything in the town hall and worked on a lot of the outside lights at the COA. And then this past cycle, we were looking at a lighting project at the library, because a lot of them are still metal halide or
Incandescent.
incandescent.
And the COA lights, those are the ones that specialize in being on at noontime.
Yeah, exactly. The power outage. But they took the lighting, so we don't qualify any of the lighting for the library now. So, and that was a big project. That would have been a big project. But we still have the boilers there with 4 330-gallon oil tanks that we were looking at. Swapping over to heat pumps, but the return on investment wasn't there.
Question from a consumer point of view. How secure is the funding from these different sources?
I don't know. So that's another thing that we're always considering. We've seen it in other funding sources. I think that 40R districts with 40S school reimbursement. It's something that years ago, back in 2011, 2012, we created a 40R district.
Mm-hmm.
A 40R district allowed high density housing. They used to call it a 40B with a check. You'd get $3,000 per unit as a density bonus, and then there was this calculation, excise tax, property tax, minus average cost per student to educate, and the state would basically give you the difference. And we had years that we were approaching $700,000 from the state to, reimburse the town for the mitigation of school enrollment coming out of these projects, and that money seems to be drying up.
So Joe, you're asking, is the DOER money for green community
I think that's what he said.
secure and stable?
Well, it's going even higher. The number one page one Globe newspaper this morning, the lead story was, how can you depend upon the money that you're getting from any level of government for energy supply?
So whether it's rebates or
Rebates,
it's
even stuff that they've granted, they're now taking back.
Clawback.
You claw back. Look at Massachusetts, and the federal government can't make up its mind from one day to the next. Do we like things that spin in the sky or not? Do we want windmills or don't we want windmills? And that changes every 12 minutes, it seems. So you're trying to plan, and people are making decisions that are affecting you. A project that you may have half completed, and now all of a sudden you don't have enough money to finish it off. We don't know how Massachusetts, which is not loved by the federal government in the first place, we don't know how secure some of these things are. Sources of funding that we're depending upon our actions to carry through.
So we can't guarantee that it'll be safe year after year, but because it is a contract. So when we're awarded a grant, we enter into contract with the state, and it's a disbursement schedule and all of these other good things. I think that's all set.
So we can trust the state, you're saying?
As far as the contract.
Or depend
for the
upon
grant
the
award,
state, yeah.
Yeah, because you got to remember, so the pot of money, if you will, is funded before the approval of a grant or the contract itself. It's already funded ahead of time. So it's not like if you do this, you'll get $50,000 a year. It's just, if you do this, we'll pay for you to do that or a portion of that. And then the annual reoccurring savings is dependent on the utility provider. Go ahead, John.
As a suggestion to answer the question of security of the funds through green community, that dovetails nicely with something I presented to the select board back at the end of June, I think, did a study of the total cost, energy cost to this town through that point in time, and it was like $370,000, including the schools. Took numbers right out of the town budget book. So then visited with John Higgins at the school district when they concluded the fiscal year, and got updated numbers from him and his department on the cost to run the schools in the school district, and the number jumped to almost $500,000. 500,000, 470 something. for our town's cost of energy. And the concept is if we can improve the buildings, use renewables, and get net zero across the town, now we have zero utility bill. Zero. Year after year after year. And if you get net positive where you're making more energy than what you're actually using in the building, you sell that to the grid. So the point was,
if I can just jump in right there on that.
Let me make my suggestion was to bring Lisa in, because this concept is covered by the Climate Leaders Program.
If I can, John, so just real quick on that. So I hear a lot about selling back into the grid. And you know, Middleborough Gas and Electric has a power purchase agreement. We can't sell to them at a rate that would be advantageous, if you will, for electricity, because you're buying it, you got to buy it back. In what I saw, we had a number of years ago, we had a company approach the regional school district and said, hey, look, we're going to put solar on your roof. And luckily I brought Sandy Richter in with me to a meeting. And so the guy do his whole spiel and said, by the way, if you put solar on the roof, your credit is not even going to be 0.25 cents a kilowatt. The problem with that is some of the numbers that I'm seeing are 18 cents a kilowatt to install. So we can't expect that we can push the region to do something like that.
That's a tangent I didn't want to get into right now. The point is to get Lisa to town, present to this committee on the Climate Leaders Program, which is a new program within the Green Communities Division. Find out from her what's required for the town to get qualified as one of those communities, a climate leader. And then find out they have greater funding through that program, higher than what with Green Community designation. Find out how much higher and when the funding would be available and what the funding can be used for. Just simply find out from her, and at the same time ask the question, is our current funding secure and for how long? Okay, so just get an update from her at a future meeting for this committee, because
What's her name?
Lisa Sullivan, she's the Southeastern Facilitator Coordinator for the Green Community Program. And the state's got other coordinators in other parts of the state. So the thought would be to find out where we're at and one of the requirements to get in the climate leaders is to have an active energy advisory committee. So we've checked that box by having us here tonight and being a member in good standing in Green Community. So we checked that box, right?
Just for process though, right? We need to stay to this agenda, because part of posting an agenda is to let the community know what you're going to be talking about.
Sure.
So what we'd have to do is we'd have to kind of put that on the agenda, organize it so that people would be aware that we're going to be talking about that.
Without a doubt.
And maybe a call to Lisa, get some information that can.
I think Joe's question, not to go back and beat up on Joe, quite the opposite. I think it's a good question. It's an informed question. Rhode Island or whoever's putting all those wind turbines out off Rhode Island, they get 80% done with it and someone yanked the money out. I think it went to court and they're winning, but...
Yeah, I think they have gotten it back, but that's what I'm saying.
That's what I said.
That's like trying to balance on a golf ball. You never know from 1 second to the next whether it's go or no go.
Which way you get a pivot?
Yeah.
I don't think we can answer those questions today. That's all speculation, but it is something that I think we need to just be alert to as we go through and following months, go through our deliberations here, that the security of the promised funds could be tenuous. Because sometimes the people just yank things back.
So typically what I've seen in the newspaper, it's for anybody to read, is when you're under contract, those funds are locked. If you still need permitting and you haven't been awarded and you're in that space, then you haven't been awarded yet. It's Nate's earlier point, right? So those funds can move around, but these other projects where you're actually under contract through, we had a NEH grant at a nonprofit I'm part of, and it got pulled right before we, were under contract, but so that can be done. But I haven't seen any that have been under contract get pulled, but it certainly is something that gets us thinking.
Makes you feel a little more secure.
And plus we're dealing with state monies as well in a little bit, so. But anyways, it's all, as you said, it's a great point. We have to keep it on the top of the conversation.
And I don't think we should spin our wheels tonight on this.
Sounds good. Well, that's the Green Communities part, the current update anyhow. We have Assawamsett windows, doors replacements. So you guys are all familiar with that project, right?
Well, that's all complete, correct?
Yeah, they have some door issues, right now that they're trying to resolve, opening and closing, doors, the controls themselves, but, all of the windows and doors have that.
I noticed the other day driving by the new windows, they're hinged up top and the bottom can swing out like this.
Yeah,
There's gotta be a reason for that.
I don't personally love it, but.
I was just wondering how effective
If they
those,
swung out at the top, the rain could get in.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. They're underneath a 3-foot overhang, but,
The squirrels.
but in most cases, you know, the hardware, and was a designer thing. So the hardware themselves, when you open and close like this on the top, it's all of the weight's directly down. It doesn't wear as much as when you have a
okay.
casement type.
Sure.
After 2 or 3 years, you end up having wear and misalignment issues and stuff.
And I would
like
think
that.
with windows in a school, there's a lot of safety concerns to be
Yeah, considered.
considered.
So that was 277 windows, 31 doors. Total budget for the project was $4,222,000. We did it for approximately 3.8 was what it ended up. But yeah, 277 windows, 31 doors. It wasn't without its issues, but we were able to get through it. I mean, in an old building like that, I think the oldest part was 1949, and then the newest area was 1988. So we were doing asbestos abatement, clearance testing. It ran into the school year, so we were starting a situation where every evening that they worked, they had to have an asbestos contractor there doing air sampling before the kids could go back into school the next day. Town collected every single one of those reports. It was clear, and the school administration was wonderful with it, is if they got notification that one didn't pass, they were prepared to shut down school the following day. So we did the asbestos abatement, all air clearance tested, and I think overall the project was quite successful. But if you look at that, like those numbers, close to $4 million, you know, what is the return on investment on something like that? And we did look at that, and it was astronomical what the return on investment was for that.
Because we pay so low for our electricity.
What has MEI, what the data collected for that building, has it changed in terms of the
So
heating and cooling?
I have it. So the utilization or energy use intensity of the building at the baseline was 26, and just in 2024 it was down to 16 at the elementary school. I'm sorry, the elementary school was at 60. My bad. That was the campus, and now it's down to 33.
So all the data's
so
in
it's in it. That I got that out of MEI.
well, I've looked at MEI in detail, and it seemed to me that some of the oil data was missing. But, you know, because it's funny with oil, you can go months with no data entered, and then another month will hit with, and then.
Well, the oil and the propane and diesel and things like that would get put in manually, where the electricity is automatically fed in.
Well, sure, so.
Yeah, so sometimes you'll see just electricity, it's because we haven't updated, you know, but it's usually, what I noticed, it was just this year, which is, you know, we're still in the middle of the year. So.
the seasonal must have an impact of some sort. What season of the year?
Yeah, it's by month you can enter the data.
Yeah.
But it's a great tool, and it shows some of the benefits. It shows that big improvement that you were talking about.
Yeah.
You know, but it's a good benchmark, because the EUI as a way to normalize against, you know, the BTUs instead of the cost of the energy, because the energy will, you know, vary. So if you look at it, you know, it's very, I mean, just getting ready for this committee, and I spent a lot of time on the website looking at it, and the town has done some really good stuff as far as both populating the data as well as, you know, the performance. Because there's no outstanding accounts that we're looking to be assigned, so it's a good way for us to look at it from a cost point of view, as John was saying, on the cost of the energy, or you can look at it from a utilization, which then normalizes it just about energy usage. But you can't predict the price. You can just keep reducing the usage, you know. So it's good. It shows the schools did some good stuff.
If the school district would tell us who their fuel oil vendor is and give this committee permission to contact that vendor directly and get the bill data, gallons and cost.
Yeah.
We could then, I'll be happy to volunteer, go into the MEI and make sure the data is accurate and enter it correctly.
Yeah, you
But
need to have a
we'd have to
different set
have
of
that
rights.
permission to get the data directly from their fuel oil supplier and not require the school to put the data in. We could do that for them.
For the manual piece, yeah.
And so that could be an action is request from John Higgins or his group.
Well, what I've done with the hospital is we would go right to the provider. So we find out who the propane provider is, and we just authorize them to send a copy of the invoice to a person that would then do the update. So we'd still go to AP and still go to the accounting folks at the school, but we would notify the provider, whoever the oil provider is or whatever. You send a copy to so-and-so, and then that person on behalf of the committee would update take the workload off the other folks.
Make it automatic.
That seems like a great idea.
Yeah.
And, going back to Jim Kenny, he just had that approachability that the schools enjoyed working with him. And they provided all of that data to Jim, and Jim would do the input. And I can remember Seth Pickering, who used to run the program years ago.
Yeah.
Seth said, Jim Kenny was set the benchmark for all other communities in the Commonwealth because of how detailed he was.
Yeah. No, it's,
And, it's
you're
really
talking
fantastic.
The MEI, it was.
You don't know the half of it.
Yeah,
It was all the way back. 2011. 2011 was the benchmark year for
Yep.
our town.
Yep.
Ironically enough, that was the benchmark that we used at the hospital for some reason that year.
So we were responsible to keep Assawamsett Elementary School in our inventory. The district itself was kind of outside, but we included it in our baseline, so we kept that going, which was a really nice thing to see how that worked. And they entered into a performance contract a few years ago with Train, and we kind of lost how that was all working. But they were still, as best I know, was still under a performance contract with Train.
Well, I think it's for the campus. 'Cause
The campus.
I met with John Higgins maybe this past summer sometime, and he provided me these numbers, cost numbers for oil.
And I will say too, John, and everybody that's interested, is the 2019 grant cycle for the $223,390. That was solely allocated by the town of Lakeville. Freetown didn't match that, nor did we ask them to. So we had an opportunity because we knew that there was such a big user, and Jim Kenny was one of the ones that were pushing it. Like, if we can do something, let's do it. So we got the Azure Level 2 audits on the campus, and when they came back, we immediately applied for the competitive grant, and the select board was just wonderful, because at first we were thinking, okay, look, if Freetown could get on board too. The grant cycles were up to $250,000, so we can put $500,000 a year into the district.
Right.
Between Freetown and Lakeville, because it's a region. And Freetown still hasn't been interested in that. They can't seem to pass a stretch energy code. I think they got all the other provisions except for the stretch energy code down, and they're not inclined to adopt that. But despite that, we took a whole grant year and just, put it towards a school, which I really thought was in the spirit of being a green community anyway. And I think it paid dividends for such a high user. There's a lot of weatherization issues there.
About 15 years ago, Old Colony entered into a performance contract arrangement with Train. There were three bidders, Train, Siemens, and I forget who the third one was. And they did it, and even today, they still say, we're saving money hand over fist.
Mm-hmm.
And that equipment's starting to get old now, and it's probably approaching obsolescence compared to the new, even more efficient furnaces and water heaters and boilers and so forth.
Yeah, it seems to be a good program if you don't have the upfront capital. So whereas you enter into a performance contract and then you're making essentially a debt schedule payment using your savings, and that's the performance contract piece of it, that they're guaranteeing savings to pay the.
You pay them what you would have paid for the under the old system for the oil and the gas and electricity. And the humorous thing about this performance contracting was the single most efficient money saver was the soda machines.
Yeah, it's a 2-year return or a 1-year return on investment?
No, like 3 months. It wasn't big dollars, but it was one of those things you stop and you say, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
On
That's- that's-
the Assawamsett Elementary, it's the same comment on that building as I have for the animal control. I'd love to see a detailed audit to find out, since it is such an old building, what's in the walls? How much insulation's in the roof? You know, the roof, the walls, the windows and the doors. Well, we've done the windows and the doors, but, you know, and if we're gonna look to further reduce, we've got the low hanging fruit. So now maybe it's a matter of looking at the performance of the thermal envelope
Yeah.
building.
It's been my
and see what-
experience with the
what
envelope.
improvements. I walked through the open house with Greg Goodwin.
Yeah.
And he said, I did a thermal scan. I found some spots where there actually no insulation in the walls whatsoever. So we've insulated those.
I was thinking thermal scans, they should be able to spot
Oh,
the leaks
absolutely.
right away.
Yeah, he did that. And now if we get the results of that and maybe find other ways to improve what's there.
Fly a drone over with a camera after
Yeah.
you've had a light snowfall,
Yeah.
quarter of an inch, and just see where it melts first.
Well, you know, the experience with the envelope improvements though is the ROI is really long.
Yeah, yes,
Because
yeah.
You can do you can spend a lot of resources to try to tighten up something, and it's very small return on that, where some.
What does it cost to rip down a wall to
Yeah,
get,
to add insulation. So we,
Well-
envelope is nice because it's forward-looking to the community, but when you do the ROI calculation, it might not have the payback that you would think.
Well, there are a lot of projects
What you
I've
did- what
read
you
where
did
you
there,
add
put
insulation
back.
to the outside of the building. You don't rip into the wall. You put
Outside.
Outside of the
Yeah.
building. Either, you know, and you reside over top of it, or you use so there's lots of techniques that have I'm on these
They
mailing
make,
lists.
they
so-
make clapboard now that has an R value. You just put new clapboard up,
Yeah.
or
like,
shingles, or
like high stuff, like R30 or something like
I
that.
don't know if
Pretty-
it's that high, but, you know, it depends. It's really the sum total of what you have on the wall, so you start with what you already have and you add to it. And you add maybe R4 to existing R6, and now you have R10.
And can we have kids from a local school install it?
You can do it.
Vocational school somewhere that knows how
I-
to work cameras?
Can't think of one.
All right, so we're gonna add a whole bunch of stuff to our list, hopefully, on the next agenda, to include possibly looking at exploring more, audits, or more in-depth audits. Some of these, things, John, that you mentioned tonight, with reporting with the school, district, and how we're gonna achieve that, and, you know, bring MEI up to date with the campus and stuff as well. So let's move on to, the 179D Energy Efficient Building Program. Don't really know a whole lot about this. John, is this something that did you bring this forward for
Yes,
are you okay with kind of giving it an overview?
sure.
Let us know what you got here.
I've worked with the 179.
In fact, Phil says he's run a program through the hospital, so, but in researching the new fire station, found so this is a Department of Energy program for lighting, water, HVAC, and building envelope. The energy efficient building is evaluated in those four areas, like water use, for instance. And scores assessed, and if the building scores maximum, my understanding is that there's a $5.81 value assigned per square foot for that building that hits 100% of all four criteria. So for the 22,800 square foot fire station, do the math, it's like $132,000. Now that, reading this and talking with Phil, that's a tax deduction. It's not a cash payment. But the process is, this program is set up for towns that are tax exempt. So we can get the deduction, but then we assign it to a designer or a third party, meaning associate and associates perhaps, where they can use the deduction that we've earned by having a energy efficient building.
There's a couple, if I could,
Sure.
there's two other nuances to get the 581.
Uh-huh.
You have to have a prevailing wage, and you also have to have an apprenticeship program
Mhm.
as part of the project.
Yeah.
That's how you get to the scale of the top end,
Mhm.
right?
Does the third party buy the tax incentive that we can't use because we're an untaxed?
The town assigns the deduction to the third party, to the architects. We assign it to them. as part of the 179 process. And there's a,
If you go to page 7, I think probably, John, is for the group here, right? This would be the one I would think that you'd be referring to for what you do with the fire station, 7 of 10, it's right down here. This one, yeah.
okay, yeah.
This is it right here for everybody. It's on the bottom right there. This is,
So there's a,
because we're doing a new project, right? So it's not a
you
renovation.
have to hire an energy engineer or to evaluate the building for these 4 criteria. And I found in looking at the fire station project early on back in 2023, I found a net zero fire station being designed for the city of Newburyport up on the North Shore. And they had an energy report on the town's website that listed out how the design of that fire station would perform. And the energy engineering firm is Andalac, and I forget their name, but I've talked to them, and they use a software program called eCompass, which is one of the authorized, approved software programs for use in the 179D program. So the thought, in being at the fire station committee meeting recently, well, if associate and associates could get together with this energy engineer, this engineering firm that did the report for the other station. The report would answer the question, well, how much will it cost to operate the station that we have as it's currently designed? And would also then check the box to see where we stand with 179D. And in addition, the next question, well, how would the energy cost of the new station with its current design that's been let to bid and will start construction soon, how could the energy cost be reduced by the use of photovoltaics on the building?
So it would be, just if I could just help.
That would be outside
with
179D, but.
Yeah, right. So on page 7, it just kind of high level shows, right? So, I don't know, we've awarded this already, right, to an architect and a design firm. They got an MEP design group and all that stuff. So they probably have the same capabilities as the Newburyport company. But what they would do is they would look at how it's designed, as John said, today, and then estimate upgrades and then the impact of those upgrades. And that's how you qualify for the tax deduction, right? So not sure how, I'm sure it was well designed in the first place. So then it becomes, how do you do that math? And so we'd have to, if we wanted to have that conversation, we could have it with the existing architect and design.
So you'd be looking at several things. You'd look at, for the existing design, what would they predict the energy consumption to be and how much would it cost?
Yeah.
Then you'd look at various levels of upgrades. We'd want to know how much those upgrades would cost the town, and if they would impose any constraint on the use of the building. I don't think it would, but there's a question. And how would that reduce the heat loss?
Get to the ROI.
What would it cost? What would the dollar return be to the town? So you can balance the cost against the return.
And that's in these 3 boxes on page 7. You just calculate the existing design, the upgrades, and then you do the math and see if you've got the ROI.
Turn the crank.
And with that, various levels of qualification, depending on the percentage of improvement you make. It depends on how much you get per square foot. So when you have a brand new design, it may have been done very well, so that would minimize that return, right? But it's definitely, depending on where we are in the process of the fire station, it could be worth a conversation
With the architect.
With their design group, their MEP design group, just to see if they're interested. Because sometimes folks wouldn't be interested. They might just defer it. And then you've got the Newburyport option, but.
I had a little bit of conversation with, who's the architect on that committee? Is it Kyle?
Yeah, Kyle Robinson.
Kyle and our owner's project manager, Taylor Kennedy.
McDonald,
excuse me.
Sorry.
We had brief little lobby conversation. And either one of them had been involved in a 179D program before. They're aware of it. I think I asked if the architectural team had a person who has the software and can do the energy modeling. And I think the answer was they don't. It'd be worthwhile to certainly confirm that with the folks.
It's that new.
Pardon me?
This 179D is that new that they don't.
Oh, it's not new. Well, I don't know,
It's
frankly,
expanded.
Joe, how long it's been in process, but
But it was
the
expanded.
architects have not been involved in a project that
Involved in, okay,
that
gotcha.
took advantage of the 179D.
Okay.
So John, are we gonna offer them a wonderful opportunity to get involved and learn all about it?
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to. I think we ought to, just to
Do
find
you
out.
know if Newburyport used this program?
Don't know, but I can find out.
Because I'd be really curious to know what other municipalities in the Commonwealth have utilized this, the scope of projects that they've done it on, and whether or not they were successful.
Yeah.
You know, because if this is, if
And where the-
assignment of these,
And where the potholes are?
yeah, where the potholes are, that's the biggest thing, right? Did it work? I'd be really curious to know, how that worked in the assignment of these tax credits or how that worked.
Yeah.
You know, does it go to an architect to then review municipal buildings, or is it like, so the Lakeville Hospital gets redeveloped and we assign an architect, these tax credits to go work on a private, project, if
Yeah.
you will?
And at a high level, 179D has been part of the IRS tax code, but it was amended under the Inflation Reduction Act, right? And then it was, and it's right here on page 1, and then it was amended again under one big beautiful bill that just got passed. So it's fairly new in its current state, but it's always been a part of the tax code. So, and that's why some of these folks are new.
And it's always changing.
Things always change. There are dates and criteria, as John had mentioned, there are dates and criteria that you have to meet. The conversation, a lot of people in the design area, they're aware of it. It's just how much have they gotten involved in it, so.
Do you think it was more because it was more private designers, private sector, non-tax exempt projects? Or do you think is that one of the newer, or it's all right if you don't?
I'm not sure exactly, so I don't want to put this on the record, but I believe that was part of the amendment, was to let the nonprofits take advantage of stuff that was always in the for-profit space.
Because I don't recall in all the years of, working with, Jane Pfister and Lisa Sullivan and Seth Pickering, never heard this come up. And we had guys like Larry Simpson, who was heavily involved, and guys like Rick Velez and Sandy Richter from Middleborough G&E that probably would have looked at something like this and said it, or even the competitive grants themselves. So when we do the competitive grant, one of the requirements for that is to look at what other mechanisms for financing or making the best project that you can. And that's why, Middleborough G&E used to offer up $8,000 a year towards energy improvement projects that we were successful going after a number of times, but that was a requirement. If there was a way to drive down that energy usage more, you would think that at some point it will become part of the competitive grant structure to say, you have to do this because this is going to get the best bang for your buck, so to speak.
What's
Would
the
you have
timetable on
any
this?
access to the presentation used in the January 2023 EAC meeting?
What was you remember what the material, the
Well,
subject?
it covered, I
was?
think, the stretch code or maybe specialized code. And I've watched the webcam, LakeCAM quite a few times, but somewhere in the back of my mind, I'm thinking there was a slide in the back of that big slide deck that had 179D on the slide. And it's been
Dawn, that come to memory at all?
No, not to me. No.
Well, I mean, there's so much stuff on that deck in that presentation.
Oh, you're talking about the fire station building
No. The Energy Advisory Committee meeting,
committee?
January 11th of 2023.
We even meet in 2020?
Yes, you did. There's a LakeCAM recording of it.
Because
and
I feel like we haven't met in like 6 years.
Well, no, the meeting is
we better
there.
go back and look.
You had a whole package of paper that you were discussing things with on LakeCAM.
So I brought it?
I think so.
Because I've been known to just bring a stack to make it look like I got a lot of information.
Well, it's a tangential
I'm
question
gonna look,
because
I'm gonna look.
they remember thinking that one of the slides had 179D on it. I remember looking into it then, in the fall of 2020, or no, early spring 2023.
I'll look.
Seems to me the last time we met was just years ago.
Well, it was 2.5 years. I mean, we're now 2025.
In the old town
Almost
hall.
3 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, John and I could form a subcommittee of this committee and kind of go off and try to
And look
bring
at
some
that.
stuff back. you
Yeah.
know?
I think it would be very helpful to
You know,
follow on
yeah.
your suggestion, and that is to talk to someone who's been through it.
Yeah,
And find out what the strengths and the weaknesses are,
Yeah.
where the potholes and the traps are that we don't really know about.
yeah.
Um,
We can start with the guys in the
Well, that's-
Newbury Port.
Talked to an accounting firm, just that, so I saw their ad, once I started Googling on 179D, my LinkedIn profile started getting ads for accounting firms that offered 179D
Yeah.
services, so.
There were a
I've
lot of,
talked to their-
Within minutes of clicking on, they were falling.
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
before this January, there was a lot of traction in that space with one of the largest funded, environmental.
The thing, John, is that if you get one of those accounting firms in, they have something to sell you.
Of course.
And I think it'd be much more helpful to have someone who's totally neutral, has nothing to gain, and would just come to us as a good neighbor and say, here's what we learned, here's what we did, here's how it helped, here's the problems we had, and here's some warnings for you, do this or that.
Maybe we can
Well,
take
I'd love
that.
to ask our retired town accountant if he has any experience, Mr. Haslett, I think. If maybe he has experience in this program, or,
Who's that?
And I think you can go through, if you go through the current, town accountant,
Yeah.
financial
Michael.
director. Yeah.
talk to him first.
Yeah, talk to Mike or, I'm nervous a little bit, John, because I don't want to send everybody off in different directions. I like what you said, Phil, because, if we work on collaboratively reaching out and, other communities to start with, who's done this successfully, what do we look out for? Probably from an internal perspective, I don't mind reaching out to Mike and asking him about this. That way we're not all doing the same, doing the same thing.
I think we can, John, you and I can grab some, as a subcommittee of this committee, grab a lot of data without having to action out town resources, right?
What was it?
But the thing, my only last question on this, if it's okay, Nate, is, when are we planning to start the fire station? When is it gonna be shoveled in the ground, do you
Maybe
think?
next week. No, it's coming close.
Coming
So
close,
we've,
yeah.
I think the select board are awarding the bid tomorrow night,
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken. We got an Eastern box turtle situation, so we're working with Natural Heritage on that. We're probably gonna be installing turtle barrier either later this week or early next week,
Okay.
and then start the turtle sweeps. Once that gets through, we're working on the final mitigation for a no net harm type of scenario for the nesting habitat. So we're offering, it's either gonna be a financial donation to the Eastern Box Turtle Fund or
Yeah.
land of similar features. So I'm probably mid-October, late October, we'll start probably seeing some tree clearing, I'm guessing.
Okay.
So Nate, sorry, I just want to say, they awarded it already
Oh,
at
they
the
did?
previous meeting, so
Oh,
the
good.
bid has been awarded.
So we have,
So-
we have a design, we have an architect, we already had an architect, now we have a GC, general
GC,
contractor.
yeah,
That's good.
thank you. Emily.
Yeah. So we can fast track some information on this, because we probably have a month or so, maybe a month and a half, let me do
There's
some.
a lot of earthwork there, a
Yeah.
lot of foundation work,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be pouring floors, I mean, it might even be something that earthwork gets done depending on weather conditions.
Yeah, and this kind of work wouldn't affect that kind of stuff,
Right.
so. And then we can, if it's okay with the committee, we can be a subcommittee of this group and go get some information and bring it back.
It's a great idea.
Right?
Yep.
When will we meet again then to deliver the information? You wanna-
So we dig
For
up.
now,
Yep, so we can do, that is, our last thing on the agenda. Let's hit, just if anybody's got any new business, and then we'll set a next meeting, and then we'll kind of go over how that other stuff will shake out.
well, I've got information I'd like to provide to the group from Green Mountain Power in Vermont, doing some really innovative and wonderful things with energy and making communities and their grid more resilient. Like, for instance, they'll have a 72 megawatt dispatchable distributed generation. They do this by having over 3,000 customers who buy their own solar panels, photovoltaic on the roofs, and they put storage batteries in the structure. So now these batteries, I think, are leased from the utility, and the customer agrees with the utility that they'll also get smart appliances, like a smart water heater, where that appliance can be timed to draw power from the grid at low peak, low demand.
John, if I can just jump in real quick, because kind of like what Phil mentioned before,
You got a good
we
one.
might have residents that are very interested in how that works. What I'd like to ask you very respectfully is if that information that you're providing, if you have documents on that, if we can put it on the next agenda. So
Oh,
we
sure,
can-
that's what I was good.
That way, you know, if
Email
we-
that to you guys.
Yeah, that would be
Well,
great. And
instead
that
of-
way
instead of-
everybody,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, no, right, Phil, it just, everybody has an opportunity to be part of that discussion. If all of a sudden somebody missed tonight's meeting or wasn't
Yeah.
aware of it, and that conversation might be very interesting to them. They might have somebody that they know work for Green Mountain, you know, and say, oh, look, I'd like to check that out. Or I think those are also opportunities, and you've brought it up in the past, John, is if there was somebody that wanted to come in and speak, this is really the forum, because, you know, our charge is not necessarily to make decisions for the community, but it's more to advise the community. So the more information that we can bring back to this group in a public setting on the agenda, and actually have speakers come in and talk to us about it. And maybe if it's a community relationship that we find somebody that's used this tax incentive process, maybe there'd be somebody that'd be willing to come speak to us and say, this is what happened. And now our public becomes more aware. And then we, you know, we're encouraging that involvement by having those conversations in that
So
manner.
what would you like me to do specifically with this information I have on?
So Green Mountain, if you can just put it together and email it,
Okay.
you can email it out, no response, has to say FYI, this is what we have, I'd like to talk about it on the
Okay.
next agenda.
Okay.
Well,
And,
yeah, I don't think we want to have a free-for-all agenda as well. We want to kind of talk through it so we can structurally go through a process of standing up this committee, getting everybody grounded on information, and really take advantage of this forum and this group of folks to talk through these things, and how they link in, right? So we got a few actions that are going to take some time, and before you know it, we'll have another meeting. And if we keep just adding a bunch of things, then we'll just have a bunch of things. We won't get a lot of things kind of moving forward. So, I mean, I had a couple of notes to reach out to Lisa Sullivan to understand what her role is. I think you wanted her to come. Right, I think that'd be great to understand what her role is, and then try to get some of the MEI stuff squared away, right? And so, and then we've also got the 179D, right? So maybe if we can just kind of take a kind of a crawl, walk, run approach. I know time is of the essence on some of these things, but it's important for us to get grounded as a committee, so that then we can all be of one voice to advise the town, select board, and whoever, right?
Speaking of the town,
Yeah.
we don't exactly have a swarming mob here.
they're all
No.
watching, they're all watching from home.
Yes.
I think though, to the select board and the town itself, folks in the leadership roles are asking this committee to advise, right? And I think we should work as a committee to get ourselves in one voice, and then advise, right? And then I think it would have some impact, the one voice approach. So,
Speaking of one voice, have we decided on a date for the next meeting?
Yeah, we have. I'd like to just real quick touch on what Phil just said, because I think it's a significant value. So from what this group's heard tonight, we know repurposing of the grant funds, we have until September 30th of next year. So maybe not a high priority right this second. The 179, if it's specific, or 179D, if it's specific to having somebody look at the fire station, I think understanding that better, quicker, is probably, would be my priority for tonight, I think. And then after that, we can work on repurposing, meeting Lisa Sullivan, work with Lisa for years. I can get you directly in touch with her. Great person, great asset, always help the town. But I think if we focus on the 179D, just to see what opportunities are out there, and then we circle back with repurposing, and, you know, by the time we look at repurposing funds for potential higher level audit, we'll also have the project completed. By that time, we'll know exactly what we'll have left. We can petition the state at that point for repurposing.
Yeah, I have that, if the committee's okay with that, I've got those 4 things listed, which is, top priority is to try to get an understanding of 179D to see how it affects, because we're right up out the window. And then we've got, the grant repurposing, maybe a notification so that we can update the spreadsheet on behalf of, we get those invoices for oil and gas and stuff. So we can get that updated, meet with Lisa, but right up top would be just flesh out this 179D, because it could be worth some monies back to the town. I mean, it would have to be something that would further reduce the ongoing cost of the fire station as well as the existing cost to build it, right? If those things come together and it's credible, we bring it back to this committee, we talk about it here, and see where it goes from there.
Yeah, and I'm not super excited about spending what savings we saw with the good successful bid results, but we came in 6.7 million under. So if all of a sudden we're able to look at something and say, well, geez, guys, that money, if spent, some of it or small portion of it to do certain improvements will yield a 20-year return on investment, and then savings every single year after that. I think that those are the conversations and why this would be of significant value now. So it could be a change order if it's something that fits into the scope, which most likely will.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think, or does everybody think for next meeting? You think 4 weeks? You think a month?
Well, let's see, that would be the 27th of October.
Maybe the week after that. What's the week after that? Should I pull my calendar?
Today's the 29th, right?
Yep.
27th, if Monday works.
Nobody else likes meeting on Mondays, and the select board have moved to Tuesdays, so it's really just this group if Mondays work. We won't be fighting for space.
Monday's fine with me.
We could do November 3rd, is that what we're thinking?
Well, I'm just gonna devil's advocate. What about meet 2 weeks from now?
I think we'll meet 2 weeks from now to try to prepare a package for the committee.
That's a good idea.
Right,
Yeah.
that's why I was asking earlier, if you and I could be a subcommittee of this
Sure.
committee to go off. Anybody's welcome to join us, obviously, but we can't get a quorum, we can't have a quorum, that's all. But we can go get some data, and put some stuff together and bring it back here. A month will be, November 3rd will be here before you know it.
Well, I took an action item to write Andrew Suchforth and Nate Darling an email asking about level 3 audit of the animal control building and heat pump sizing without changing or slowing down the contract for the heat pumps, and find out the cost of the audit for level 3 ASHRAE.
Yeah, we had said that we've got some, you can do that
So-
for sure.
so
but did you want to bring it back to this committee?
Oh,
or send
absolutely.
it direct?
Well, I'll send it to
Because
Andrew and Nate.
I think mainly what I'm just trying to suggest is that we don't want to be a committee of individuals, right? We want to be a committee that's everybody here is grounded. So if somebody was to stop any one of us and say, hey, what's going on with that, letter or that repurpose? I heard we're repurposing. We want to make sure that we've had it here, because then the community will realize that any of those energy conversations will kind of try to start here, and then we bring them out. I guess.
Are we meeting
it's up to the
November
group.
3rd? Is that the plan?
That's what I was thinking. I was throwing that out for the day.
Works good for me.
6 o'clock here.
Well, I'd like to propose another topic for this next, as an agenda item for the November 3rd meeting. Is there's a organization called poweroptions.org. It's a nonprofit, and based on the town's energy spend yearly basis, there's a cost to join the consortium, but we ought to talk that through, because one advantage of that consortium is that consortium pre-selects solar suppliers by any other member of the consortium. It's a large consortium. these other members will have solar projects run through the consortium, so they go out to bid on all these other projects, and then they get a low bid supplier that's already vetted. And it saves the town having to go out to bid for solar panels, say for instance, for the fire station. Because we joined this consortium, so we ought to talk that through on November 3rd at our meeting. And the idea was, well, join the thing, and then we reap the benefits of having of energy experts.
Body of information.
Yeah, and then also they would do their solar supplier would just need the AutoCAD drawings of the architect of the fire station and the electrical line drawing, and they'd come back to us with the cost, the size of the panels, the cost of them, and they'd have the panels on the building already in the drawings.
So John, I want to make sure that we kind of go in the spirit of what Phil's mentioning. And we don't want to be doing too many things at once. We want to make sure we're crossing things off the list. So already we're looking at this Green Mountain company to possibly provide information to us, or at least talk about a little bit. I understand exactly what you're saying with solar panels, and if you're a part of a consortium, then you're going to make savings there. But if we start with this tax credit piece and figure out if it even is a viable thing. I mean, we got a fire station is going to take about 18 months, to build. So I'd like to tackle this in pieces that we can digest and make work. So if we start with the tax credit piece, get the information back, maybe if we want to look at it going forward, and it's ultimately going to be Phil's decision as the chair to set the agenda and see what is reasonable to tackle in one night. But I would like to suggest to this group, and I'd like to suggest to all groups, is that you don't take more than one new thing a night, and then you make sure that after that you're taking things off as you're adding, so that we're making sure that we're providing deliverables. This is what we're talking about. We're going to close this out, and then we're going to go to the next thing. I would hate to get overwhelmed with all of these different things, and entering into a contract, while we can make a recommendation to the select board, entering into that would be a select board decision.
Yeah, we couldn't do that, and we wouldn't do that. Totally support the approach. The 179D is an evolution of a process. So if it's capable, if we talk to people and bring it back here, and we all feel that that we've reviewed the pitfalls and such, then that would be the design that would improve the fire. We'll say the fire station, right? And then whatever that design is what we go source. For us to come in and presuppose it's going to be solar, it's going to be this, right? It kind of gets a little bit ahead of the whole reason for getting the 179D is to get it designed to be more efficient than it's already designed. I'm not an engineer at that level to understand what that would be, but this would be a process to say it's going to save the town money, not only in the capital to build a fire station, but in the ongoing operational cost of the fire station. And then whatever that design comes out to then goes to get sourced and so on. It goes through select board and such. So, and that's a lot of work. That's going to be a lot of work. Just that one piece right there. And then of course the grant, getting approval for level 3 audits instead of level 2 to get funded for level 3 instead of level 2 will give us more data for the next time we want to go and improve a facility. And the rest of the stuff was mainly just kind of updates, right? So, but those two right there is pretty good meat. As we all have been on committees before, right? And these things take time because you got to get on people's schedules, and you got to talk, you got to assemble data, and we got to get a packet so we can bring it to the committee for the next go around. So ideally, we can get the 179D squared away before November 3rd. That's a big rock. We'll all be on the same page on November 3rd. Yes, go, no, go, whatever, right? Based on what we discover, and bring that information for this group to see. That'll be here before you know it.
Phil, I'm so sorry, but for the November 3rd, I actually do have a tentative conflict for the select board on the 3rd.
Okay.
And just given that Lorraine isn't here today, I don't know if a different Monday would work, the 27th or the 10th. Sorry to throw a wrench in that day, but I just wanted to bring that up.
In October, no.
It's great to have you, Emily. Keeping us in.
Thank you.
Well, how about October 27th? That's a week before.
Yeah, I can't do the 27th.
How about, I can't do it the 29th.
I could do,
My schedule's wide open, so it doesn't.
The 30th, October 30th?
Halloween's the
I could do the
31st, we don't want to have it Halloween.
I could do October 28th if that works for folks.
Is that a
That's a-
Monday
that's a
also?
Tuesday night.
That's a Tuesday.
Okay,
That's the fourth Tuesday.
and I meet
Your
every,
first and third or second and fourth?
well, I'm second and fourth.
So everybody that's here can make the 3rd.
Mhm.
So why don't we tentatively pencil that in?
The 3rd of
And then we can see.
November?
November 3rd, we're,
Yeah, here. You wouldn't be able to be here, would you be able to be here? Okay.
I don't know if I would, but
Okay.
I'm also not a voting member, so it's up to
No,
you
it's-
guys, but.
No, so,
You're
Fine to bring
proposing
that one
November,
up.
Wednesday, November 3rd?
yeah, well, we could just go to the 10th. Then will you be able to be here on the 10th?
I would be.
November 3rd is a Wednesday?
Can you, it's a Monday, and
It's
can
a
you do
Monday.
I'm just asking, can you do the 10th now? I'm sorry.
Yes.
So November 10th,
November
and I don't think
10th.
having closure on the 179D by then.
I have
will
a,
affect-
I have a 5 o'clock meeting scheduled on the 10th.
And November 10th is a second Tuesday.
Okay.
Is it
So
Tuesday?
it's a Monday.
It's a Monday.
It is, yeah. It's the second Monday though,
Okay. And that's November,
10th.
I'm not available on the 10th.
Okay,
I can do the 10th.
all right.
I can also do the 3rd.
Yeah.
They're both Mondays, right?
Tuesday works for me, the 11th.
I can
The
do
11th
Tuesday.
would be Veterans Day.
I know, my mother's
So we
birthday,
wouldn't
yeah.
have to be able to meet that day.
So, what about?
Armistice Day.
All right, what about the 5th?
Is that a holiday?
Was that-
How about we have it
11th?
sooner? I mean, why
Yeah.
drag it out?
Because we'll just talk and we won't have our data together, and I want to really
We
check
could
some
still meet.
stuff off. I'll have it sooner if we have the data, but I think we'll just have it sooner. We won't have our stuff done. If we take the time to do this process, we can actually dovetail to the timing of the fire station. If we just have another meeting and we don't have substance, then we'll just be talking.
All right, well, let's
You know.
meet separately to find out what, I'm not clear.
I'm fine with
what-
the 3rd. Let's do the 3rd, Emily.
That's all right.
That's, because otherwise we'd have to push it. out
November
too far.
3rd.
Yep,
Okay,
everybody can do the 3rd.
November 3rd. All right.
And, if we have something, but I think the 3rd will be here before you know it. I mean, it's October tomorrow, 2 days, so.
It's crazy. So with that being scheduled, motion to adjourn.
So made.
Second.
All those in favor?
I.
Aye.
Aye, aye, aye.